A Chinese tariff of nearly 76% on Canadian canola came into force today. The levy is a response to Canada's 100% tariff on electric vehicles from China. The effect on one of Canada's most valuable crops has already had a major impact, wiping out millions of dollars in its value. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre spoke in Saskatchewan last hour, calling out Prime Minister Mark Carney on a number of things, including his response to China's canola tariff.
I think we should look at ways we can penalize the regime in Beijing for targeting our farmers. And so far, Mark Carney has said nothing about the canola producers. It's like he doesn't care about Western Canadian producers.
My next guest is a canola and pea farmer in Fillmore, Saskatchewan. Chris Prosick joins us now. Chris, how are you feeling today as Canada's tariffs on Canadian canola imports take effect? I mean, obviously we knew it was coming, but you're directly affected here.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing. This has been building for a number of months now in terms of what the response is going to be. And, I think there's a lot of us that expected this outcome. I think it's disappointing that we've seen other industries attacked by tariffs from different countries, and there's been kind of swift and immediate response or task force, and we're here, starting harvest or within the week starting harvest, and there's been nothing.
Yeah. So that response, how are you feeling about? Are you hearing enough, or I guess not what you would hope for or expected?
Well, I don't think we're hearing anything at all. I think that's the disappointing part is canola being one of the largest crops on the prairies, as well as a $43-47 billion industry just in itself. It dwarfs a lot of others. It's a massive industry, and agriculture as a whole touches every corner of this country. I think there's a lot of benefits to support ag in terms of small communities, in terms of different things like that. I'm disappointed in the silence on these issues.
You're just days away from harvest, I understand. What specific impact are the tariffs going to have on your farm and your livelihood?
Well, I think for us, it's going to change a lot of how you market your grain. I think in spots where we were going to maybe sell some canola to generate some cash to pay some bills, that's going to have to end up being other crops that carry that weight that maybe you didn't want to sell because of a lower price or whatever. And kind of the double whammy for us being a pea grower as well is intertwined within this announcement is the look into pea starches, and that dropped pea prices as well. So there's, for us, there's, close to half of our acres of our farm that now are getting dangerously close or below cost of production values, and no end in sight in terms of costs going through the roof because of tariffs from other countries.
There's always so many things at play when you're a farmer and you work in agriculture. And tariffs are just, another layer of concerns that you're facing. But talk to me about the conditions that the canola farmers specifically have been up against.
I think this is not a new tactic for China. I think in 2018, this happened in terms of investigation or probes into dumping or different things like that. So it's not a new tactic. It's a strategy they've used before. So I think what we need as farms, we need, predictable trade with our trade partners. We need market access. A $5 billion industry into China, you can't just diversify that market into somewhere else. That's a massive market to move. And I think we just need predictable trade and market access into some of these countries and use agriculture as a driver of the economy.
And right now, I think it's fair to say you don't have that. How long can you sustain the impact?
I guess that's a good question. I think for us, our farm, we're good for, several months. But at some point, you're going to have to turn this canola seed that you harvest into cash to pay bills. So I think every farm is going to be slightly different in terms of how they set their marketing plans up. I think towards the end of winter or even towards Christmas, you'll start to feel the the pinch on a lot of farms with, starting to plan for the 2026 crop, where what does acres do for that, or, fertilizer prices or different things around those fronts. So there's several layers of concern in terms of how this impacts it. It's not just a one thing.
You touched on this a little bit at the top about supports for agriculture, but specific to canola farmers, we've seen other industries that have been affected by U.S. tariffs. There's been federal government support announced for them. What support would you like to see support from the federal government at this time?
I think the first thing would be is just recognizing that there's a big problem and that ag is important. I think it's been pretty quiet on the federal front in terms of ag. I think there's different things through the business risk management programs, through AgriInvest, through AgriStability, that have been announced as kind of quick stopgaps. But I think there's more to do. I've seen money go into market developments. I've seen money go into guaranteed loans, low interest loans to help bridge the gap of trade wars. I think those are just some good starting points for a response. But I think the biggest thing is I think we just want to be recognized that we're feeling the hurt, and that's someone that's looking out for our best interests on a federal level.
Well, Chris, thank you for the conversation and helping drive that point home. Chris Prosek is a canola and pea farmer in Fillmore, Saskatchewan.